My name is Lavinia Grippentag. For those that I have not met, I'm one of the transition specialists at State Board of Education. We also have Deanna Taylor on today. She is also a transition specialist at the State Board of Education. And we're glad that you're here to join us today for the post-high survey training. If everybody could please put their name and the LEA that they represent in the chat box, that would be great. If you haven't already done that, and then you don't need to leave your video on if you don't want to, but just make sure you
we changed it.
It's being recorded. Also, please mute if you are not needing to or you have a question.
I have to
Please mute your mics. I think we have folks maybe that are not muted. I don't know who, okay, if anyone has control to mute, but okay, great. So I want to introduce Mary Campa. She has been a contractor with the State Board of Education for, I don't know how many years, but quite a year, longer than I've been there. And she has taught me everything I know about the post-school outcomes and the survey process and indicator 14. So she's going to kind of lead off on the training today. She essentially runs the website and all of our data and knows the survey process inside and out. So I'm going to turn the time over to Mary.
Hey, I would welcome everyone here. I'm going to share my screen. And okay, can you see everything there? Jenny, is it okay?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. And Jenny Jacobs is my partner here in Wisconsin. She works for CISA 7 in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and has worked with me in the Wisconsin post-school outcomes website and survey process, and also with Utah. And she'll be here. She actually set up the Zoom for us here today. So I may be asking her to do some things like check in the chat line to see if there are any questions here that I'm missing, and a couple other things. And I would really like this to be as interactive as possible. I know that working on a Zoom doesn't always lend itself to that very easily, but I would welcome the questions as we go along. One of the things that's really important to me is getting across to you everything that's on this website and that you need to successfully complete the surveys, but also to really enjoy the survey process. We've been doing this for a number of years, and one of the things that I know are people that do the surveys one year often come back the next year to do the survey, because it's really not a hard sell when the student or the former student or the parent knows why we're conducting the survey. They really do want to talk to the school, to talk to someone from the school about what's going on in their world. And sometimes it's just a really timely connection to make with them about community resources and some help that they may be needing right now. And the teachers find it really fulfilling to get this information, to make that connection with the students. And we do have people other than teachers doing some of the surveys some of the times. And I just know that the interviewers find that it's a really good process. So I want you to enjoy the process and feel comfortable with it. So either on the call today, the Zoom, ask your question, put it in the chat, unmute yourself and ask the question at the time, because someone else probably has the same question, or go ahead and use this contact link. This is I know there are some people on the call who have done the survey in the past, and some of you who are new to the survey process. We have a new look to the website this year, but we do still have the contact us link. You can click on that. You can always get a hold of me. It will go right to my email. We just put your question in and it comes right to me. And here's Lavinia's contact information if you don't have it right there. But as soon as, when you have a question, even if it's 7 at night and you're doing a survey and a question comes up and you want the answer to it, go ahead and send me a question and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. So this is the new website. And we had a longer utahposthighsurvey.org. That always works. You can also put in just www.utah-pso for postschool outcomes.org. That works always. But if you see the post-high survey up there, it's the same link, just a little shorter if people need it. So this is what you see when you come to the site, the URL. Everything that you need is on this page. Almost everything that you need, at least to get started. And everything that you see on this page does not require a login. So this is open to the public. And I want to go what's on this welcome page, and then we'll go to the logins. And I want to make sure that you understand that everybody has more than one login. You will have your login when you're doing the actual survey and you want the information to go in and be recorded for your district. But we also have a login that you can use so that you can practice doing the survey. And it doesn't enter into your district data. It just gives you a chance to run through the questions and practice as much as you want. So two logins. But before we get there, I'm going to show you what's on the welcome page. It will be of information and interest, I think, to you. I'm not seeing the chat right here, Jenny. Is there anything in the chat that we need to talk about now? Anybody have any questions before we get started?
Nope, everyone has been putting in their name and their LEA, so no questions at this time.
Okay, so what we have here is if you don't have an account now, you will request an account, and that request goes right to Lavinia for her to approve. And the reason some of this information is confidential is because when we collect the student information, I say student, but it always means former student, the former student information, it's entered into the website, and no one could actually see what particular former student said what to what particular question. It all goes into the district's database, but the district can sort information down to the Asian male hearing impaired student who graduated with a regular diploma. And so to protect the confidentiality of the respondents, everybody needs a secure login to this website. But not in the secure login is about the survey. So the first thing that, we won't go over all of this today, but this is for anybody who wants to know about the Indicator 14 survey for Utah. It talks about why the post-school outcomes data are collected. This is part of a federal requirement from the Office of Special Education Programs that each state makes statements about students who are no longer in high school and who exited high school with an IEP. And it actually started as that very vague statement. And then Indicator 14 came in. There were only a few states doing the survey when it was that vague language about making statements about students who no longer attend school. And now we have Indicator 14 that sets up some pretty specific things that we're looking for as a way to measure that the state is meeting some of its own goals. So the state collects this information through the schools, puts all the individual school district information together to represent the state, and then the state sets individual annual goals and 5-year targets. And as you know, Lavinia and Deanna make numerous activities available every year that help improve the outcomes for students with disabilities. And then it's collected annually and reported back to OSEP. And it's really not data that's meant to be used to compare state to state. It's really about setting guidelines for the state and the state working to improve those outcomes annually, if that makes sense. Your leaver data, which means students who left school, is provided to our website by the Utah Board of Education, and that information is entered into the website. So when you log on, you will see the students who left in the 2018-19 school year, so May or June of 2019, and have now been out of school for 1 full calendar year. So it would be May or June of 2019 to May or June of 2020. And then all the way through September 30th, we make attempts to contact those students who have been out of school for a year and ask them questions about where they're living, working, and adult services that they've used, things like that. An important thing to know is that the students who left school left with a regular diploma, a certificate of one type or another, sometimes certificate of attendance or another certificate. A new category this year called an alternate diploma, reaching the maximum age of eligibility for services, which is 21 years old, through the year you turn 21, and by dropping out. So it's not a survey just for students who left with a regular diploma. All students who left school or did not return to school, who were expected to return to school, are included in the survey. And I know that's one of the things that we kind of bump up against is, one, the student said, well, I didn't graduate, I dropped out last year. And the survey then is discontinued, which it shouldn't be. We want to capture that information as well. And then as a district, you can actually look at your survey results by these 5 different categories and make some observations for your school team. How are the LEA Indicator 14 post-school outcomes data collected? By using this website. So the website is used for background information that's available to everybody without a password, to the people conducting the interviews, and the individual districts to look at their results. Your director of special education in your school district or another authorized person was given the opportunity to have one of 3 choices about doing the survey. We contract with St. Norbert College Survey Center. It's actually the Strategic Research Institute. Sometimes I refer to it as SRI, or just St. Norbert, is contracted to do surveys on behalf of the state for the district. So your district has the opportunity to have St. Norbert do that. They have done the survey for us all the years that we have been doing the survey. And I think that's been since the 2007-8 school year. So quite a long time. They understand the survey questions and the variety of people they can get on the telephone. They understand a lot about the survey. But we find that the best information comes directly from the former students to the school. And so we've also made available 2 other options. One, your district could have decided we are going to do the survey instead of St. Norbert. So we want to make that connection with the former students or their parent or guardian or another person who knows them. And we are going to ask the question, St. Norbert won't be involved. And that's perfectly fine. And we find that you get the best response rate usually with that method. But a third one is kind of a blended method. And that is that St. Norbert will make the initial contact. They'll make 1 to 3 contacts. When those surveys are unsuccessful, or when St. Norbert is done trying your list of exiters, we don't close out the survey. We let you know that they've made their best attempts, and you will then follow up with the surveys. And I'll show you as we get into the website how you will know which students have been successfully contacted and which ones have not. So we have both types of interviewers, those last 2 that we talked about with us on the call today. There's a timeline here, and then there's a little note to your director of special ed or your contact person that regardless of what method of collecting this information your district is doing, SRI, SRI first, or the district only, throughout the survey process, especially if St. Norbert is doing the survey, to check in and see how the surveys are going throughout the summer. Not where it's just you have some contact right now with Lavinia, where you check your student list, and then you, after September 30th, come to the website and see what happened. You have the ability to check in during the survey process to see how the surveys are coming. And that will become much more evident as we go through this on how that takes place. So that's this document here about the survey. One of the things that we suggest is that, especially if St. Norbert or SRI is conducting the survey, that you send a letter letting them know that the survey is a legitimate survey. This is not a requirement from the Utah Board of Education or from Lavinia saying that you have to send a letter, a heads up letter to the former student, but it really does help. You know, the students, young people, their stranger danger now is all online, and who answers the phone anymore? So it's nice to get a heads up. This is the letter that lets the former student know that sometime during the school year, someone from your school will call and ask some questions about where they've lived, where they're living, where they're working, if they're going on to school. It takes less than 10 minutes and it's voluntary. So you would personalize this letter and mail it to your former students. And then this one is SRI, just letting them know that someone that they don't know from Wisconsin will be calling them. So this tells them about St. Norbert College. And again, you want to use your own school's stationery, put someone's name that they recognize, and that definitely will help those surveys be conducted. And even when you're calling, someone from the school is calling, it's nice for them to know that it's legitimate. Deanne and Lavinia put together a resources guide for you to use. One of the things that we know from doing the survey is that this time of year, and especially what's going on in the country and around the world, students are going to be unemployed. They're going to have their secondary education disrupted, lots of things going on, maybe food insufficiency, worried about paying rent, and you will hear about some of those things. So these are some resources. I'd like you to just click on this and take a look at what's available statewide, and then think about what are some resources in your local community that you can add to this list. It's a Word document so that you can just add what you have in your community. And I think that a couple of the ones that you'd really want to think about would be like health and human services. So who might help them if it's housing or food? Who might they contact if, you know, I can't go to school right now, but I'm thinking about it in the fall. We have a full 25 to 30% of students who don't go to school right after go on to school right after high school, but they plan to go on the year after. So their second year out of school. So you might want to have higher education. You might want to have someplace that they can connect with getting a job, a disability service. That might be useful. So this resource list is there for you, and really would welcome you to add to that. This is not a great document. This next one, this is because I think it's just a little bit long, but it gives the basic information to parents and students that you can share when students are in their senior or final year of school. It explains a little bit about the survey to the families, the importance of responding, and gives some sample questions and a few transition resources along with Lavinia's contact information. This is something that you can print and put in that letter that we just showed on the website. So if you do select to send one of these letters, you could put one of these notes that is available in Spanish and accessible right in that envelope to your former students. Okay, any questions about that? Anything on this left-hand side? Okay, I'm going to go backwards on this side. This is about your data and the reports. Your district data is actually comprised of the survey responses. So if you have 10 exiters in your district and you successfully contact 8 of those former students, those 8 students make up all of your district's data and reports. Okay, so this is the section that you'll want to come to if you want to learn more about what's available. So you'll have a login. Once we get to the login, you'll see that these are here. We're not going to go over these today, but just know that we have a couple different documents that tell you what data is available and a quick guide on how to use those reports. Okay, and then we have statewide data going back to 2007. If you want to click on any of these statewide reports, it's available for you to see. You won't want to do that probably, but it just, it's where it's stored. So the one thing that I want to do on this page yet is go over the indicator 14 definitions so that you understand how these definitions connect to the questions that you'll be asking the former students. You'll want to make a copy of the survey questions. So you're just going to click on the survey questions right here. There are 5 pages that start out with who answered the question and goes right through their post-secondary education training or higher education, employment, and adult living, and then ends the survey. So that's part of the training, going through these questions. We'll go through these questions once we're logged in. But here's the indicator 14 definitions. And what I wanted to show you is this report. When you click on this report, I've got a little bit of introductory information up here. This is a report that is created from your district data. The state has the exact same report on the admin side of the website. So what I want to explain here is there's a lot to look at. And I've been looking at this for 15 years, so I look at it and I can pick out things right away. But I really want you to know that this is a report that's available. It connects the definition of the law of what indicator 14 is and what it looks like. So this has 4 areas of data collection. Okay, so we look at these 4 areas and then roll them up into these 3 blue areas. And I'm going to explain how this works. This is the actual Utah statewide report from the 2019 survey, so last year's survey. In 2019, there were 1,830 statewide respondents. It's a little bigger. Okay. Out of the potential, that didn't get replaced, out of the potential of 4,700 students for a response rate of 39%. It's not right here. Should just be 830 students. So what we're looking for is in higher education, we're looking for students who completed at least one term at a 2-year college or a technical college or a 4-year college or university, regardless of participation in anything else. So as we're collecting this information, your exiters, let's go back to those 10 exiters. You get 8 of them on the phone. They will only be in one of these 4 categories and in the highest one. So if they say yes, they did complete one term in one of these 3 types of programs, they would be counted here and nowhere else. We go on to ask questions about competitive employment. If they have not participated in higher education, they can be counted in competitive employment and no other category. And for competitive employment, they have to say yes to each one of these. And as we go through the questions, you'll see the structure of the question, but through the questions that you ask, they have to be working 90 days in a community setting, 20 hours a week or more, and earning minimum wage or greater. So 90 days can be any amount of days from the time they left school until you're talking to them. 90 days either in a row with the same job or 2 or 3 jobs, or it can be one 30-day job, one 45-day job, one 45-day job, one 45-day job, one 50-day job. You can put all of their jobs together to equal 90 days. And it can be paid or unpaid. And I'll tell you why. But for competitive employment, it has to be paid. They have to be working an average of about 20 hours a week or more, so about half time, and earning minimum wage or greater. So minimum wage, it's still $7.25 in Utah, unless you are wait staff, then it's $2.13. That is minimum wage for wait staff or an opportunity employee. And it has to be in a community setting. Lots of different ways you can meet that criteria, but it has to be in the community, not a separate setting. If they're not counted there, they may be counted in other post-secondary education or training. So that's completion of at least one term at any short-term training, education program, anything else really that improves the employability skills of the student. It's really a range. It can be a lot of different things. From an employer-based training program, it can be if the former student is in the community with someone from Department of Workforce Development, and they're still learning to tolerate lights and sounds. It's their pre-employment plan that will count. A humanitarian program like a mission is a big one. That counts as post-secondary education or training. Anything that improves their employability skills. If they're not counted there, they could be counted here for other employment. And other employment is 90 days or more since leaving high school. Okay, so other post-secondary education or training is just not higher education. And other employment is 90 days. It doesn't matter if they're working 10 hours a week, if they're being paid by the piece, the rate of pay and the location doesn't matter. So you can see here that there was almost 20% going on to higher education, almost 50% competitively employed, just a little over 7% other post-secondary education or training, and about 9.5% in other employment. So this is what we call an unduplicated count. Except for OSEP doesn't care about these 4 categories. What they care about is what's called rolled up data. And this is where the state makes their annual targets and a 5-year goal. So what they'd be looking at is higher education, and you can see it matches. So here's higher ed, and it matches this 19.6, it's 19.6. So A. B is when you combine higher education plus competitive employment, that equals 67.6. So about 2/3 of students with disabilities 1 year after leaving high school are participating in higher education or competitive employment. Those are the 2 highest categories. And then this third one is all of these these categories combined. So last year, nearly 85% of students, former students, were actively engaged in one of these 4 categories, which is tremendous. So you can see now when you collect your district data, you will get this exact same report. You'll be able to see A, B, and C, and talk with your team about where, how does your data, your outcomes data compare to the state? 15%, almost 16% were not engaged or did not meet the criteria, 286 students. The state is required to report both a number and a percentage, is why we have both of these here to 2 percentage points. Have to explain any slippage. So if they aren't higher than last year or meeting the goals, the state has to explain why not. Not meeting participation criteria, I split that up into 2 things because I think it's really important for the state to look at, of those 286, how many never participated in anything? That means that they didn't go on to any type of continuing education and never were employed. So last year of the 286, 203, almost 11% fell into that category. And 86 were actually underemployed or under-engaged in secondary education. So they worked less than 90 days. They maybe participated in a training or a higher education program or continuing education, but they didn't go for at least 1 full term, or they have missing data criteria and elements. So maybe they said don't know, or they are reluctant to share how much money they're earning. They can't count for competitive employment if they don't at least share a range of how much money they're making, because they have to meet all this criteria. Does that make sense?
Hey, Mary, this is Lavinia, can I chime in
Yep.
for a second? Because I think
Yep.
we've got some questions and this might be a good place to clarify. So this was totally confusing to me at first too, because when you look at the data points like 1, 2, 3, and 4, we are counting them separately. So in other words, if a student is working and going to higher ed, we're going to count them for 1 and for 2. But for the purposes of how we report data to Office of Special Ed programs, all they care about, like Mary mentioned, is that A, B, and C. So if a student is counted in higher ed, but is also competitively employed, down here, we're just counting them in A.
Highest category, right?
Right, correct? So it looks like, how come they're not getting credit for competitive employment? They are, because they're counted here in 2. And that's what's so great about the website, is you can look at the data in so many different ways. So you can really dig down and say, let's look at our students that are competitively employed. Let's look at, so instead of just looking at the A, B, and C data points, you can really dive in and look at a lot more. But for our reporting purposes, OSEP only wants A, B, and C. So we have to roll that data up. But for the purposes of looking at your own programs, that's where, you know, the data aggregated in all different ways becomes really important. So I think it's important to just mention that just, you know, making sure that you fill in the answers to the student or family's questions accurately. That's all like you have to do as an interviewer. And then, you know, Mary makes sure that she teases out the correct data so that it goes into the right places. Does that make sense? Mary, did I say that correctly?
You did. Yep, there's a lot of checkpoints throughout the whole process. And then we have something called a longitudinal report that'll actually put your 2016, 17, 18, 19 data right next to each other in a single report. So that's just a little convenience for your district. So, and no, this is real-time data. So of the 10 students that you have in your LEA, when you collect 1, it fills in 1. When you get 4 the next day, it does it for 5 students. So this is real-time reporting. So you'll always come up with a date on the bottom of your report so that you can keep track of when you're actually printing that report. Survey goes through September 30th. We're looking at June 1st till September 30th. I take about a week or 10 days to take a look at all the responses, make sure they're coded correctly, and then the website is open for those reports, but you can check in on these reports anytime. Okay, so this is where we're going to shift over to actually getting to the survey. But I wanted to do just a few things, considerations for this year. And this is on the document, I'll log in, but I wanted to say these few things before we get started into the actual website. Know that we've actually been on a national call, really talking about this year is very different conducting the survey than in past years, with everything that's going on with the stay-at-home orders and the coronavirus and things that everybody is experiencing in their homes. This will likely be a more stressful time for those responding to the survey. And it may be stressful for you as well as an interviewer, listening to some of the things that are going on. And know that Lavinia and I and Dan are here for you if you need to call and to talk about some things that are going on, and to be especially supportive and kind on these calls. If the respondent declines to participate, that's totally acceptable. You are welcome to ask them, would you like to be contacted? Would you be willing to be contacted maybe later in the summer? And there'll be a place that you can record that if they're willing to do another survey in the future. And also, we've added some response choices this year that might capture some of the coronavirus stay-at-home things that are going on with the individual students. That'll help us get a better picture of what's going on. So you just saw the Indicator 14 report. If there's a big drop in the number of students who are working from that almost 50% down to 35%, these extra response choices may give us a clue as to why. And you'll see those as we go through those response choices. And I would just say, review these documents. See, you can see this is page 1 of 10. This is a 10-page document. It sounds like it's really long, and it does feel long, but look through this document after this call, and as you're preparing to do the surveys. What we have in here is how to log in. We've got the specific, each one of the login links, I'm going to give you specific directions for. How to get the survey going, where you fill in updated information, specific survey questions, and then the survey tips, do's and don'ts. And we may not get a chance to get to this. This is page 9 and 10. Because I want to honor the 1 hour that we have. So we're going to be done by about 25 after and have a closing. Know that it's here and that I do want you to use this document to prepare. I have my name and Lavidia's name and contact information all over the place. Again, I think it will really add to your enjoyment of this process to feel confident in doing the survey. So everybody should have, and I did copy and paste 35 email addresses from users into an email to Lavinia yesterday onto our tracking sheet. So I know that most people do have an actual login. And if you want to use that login to log in now, that would be great. Or you can use one of these 5. I'm going to leave this on the screen for just a minute so that you can choose one of these. The reason that there are 5 choices is because we have a lot of people practicing, and I clean out the surveys and make them blank every once in a while, but you can actually go in there, do the surveys, close it out, see how it works, try it again. So you can choose any one of these. So the username is Zeta, Z-E-T-A 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 at utahposthighsurvey.org. That's the username. And then the password is the corresponding capital Z for Zeta 1. So I'll show you how it works over here for me. Just make this a little smaller so you can still see this. I'm going to log in as Zeta 5. That's my Zeta 5, and here's my password. And when I log in, I'm at the coordinator links and the confidentiality page. So I'm going to give everybody, and you can log in now if you want to follow along, or you can just watch my screen, and that's just fine too, and know that you can get in there and do some practicing using any one of these 5. So, and this is where I said we have the 2 different URLs. This is just, it's not, it doesn't have the HTTPS, it's just this, but that bumps you to the secure login. And the longer utahposthighsurvey.org. Okay, and again, I'm not watching the chat, so if anybody's in there saying, you know, that they're having any difficulties, let me know. The first page is just about confidentiality and how important it is that things that you hear on the survey call cannot be repeated to other people. Cannot be shared with other people, that the responses, that's one of the assurances that we have, is that this information is confidential. So when you log in, this is where you are, the confidentiality page. The next link down is called interviewer information. So if you didn't get this link directly from Lavinia, what I'm looking at right here is actually this interviewer directions and tips. So you click on that, it will open up into this PDF, and this is the 10-page document that I just scrolled through. Okay, and here are the interviewer questions. I think we already took a look at those. There are 2 different ways that you can do the survey. One, you can print a paper copy of the survey of these 5 pages, and you can follow along and record the former students' responses on paper. Then you log into the website and you enter their responses online. It's the only way that they can be entered as if you do that. And that's fine, and some people feel more comfortable doing that. But online is really how we intended the survey to be conducted, because all of the links, the skip patterns, and where you go next are built in online. So if you do this, make sure you have put the student's name and maybe the date and when you called, just to keep it in mind. Things like the student list fills into the sheet, the student's name. So as you're doing the survey, may I please speak with John? John's name pops up in the survey. And all those different decision points that you'll see are built in for you. But you certainly can make a paper copy of the survey and have it next to you. Even if you're doing it online, you might want to have a paper copy next to you. Okay, so you'll want that. So you can actually follow along. If you do have a paper copy of these 10 pages, I'm going to keep it right over here as I'm going through this so that you can see what we're talking about, how it relates. So I only have 2 links now. One is the directions and tips, and the other is the interview questions. And then the statewide resources is on the welcome page. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to want to do when you come in here is take a look at these 4 links. One is edit contact information. One is enter surveys, looking at your LEA data and looking at your LEA reports. This is everything that you need. So right now on the PDF of the interviewer directions and tips, we're right here at this edit contact information. So you're going to go in here. Now I'm logged in as a practice. When you log in as a practice, you're going to see names like this. These are all just phony students that we have set up and phony phone numbers that you can practice. When you log in with your actual or real login, you're going to see your former students here. What you're going to see is the survey year, and you can see it goes all the way back to 2007. 2019 is not active right now. We're in 2020. Your LEA is listed, and then your building. So if you have more than 1 high school, maybe you're assigned to, excuse me, a specific high school. Put your high school and you can see my list was edited from 10 students down to 5. These are the 5 students for your high school. Okay. I'm going to put all. You can search a student by their last name. We don't really use the birth date, but the last name alphabetically is how it's organized. And if you are in a larger district and you're looking for Susan Smith, you can put in Smith and it will load the records for you. When you're actually into the survey, it will give you the option to just select, well actually that's when you're entering the survey. So now what you'll see are the phone numbers for your former students. These are collected by your LEA when the student is in their senior or last year of school. 1 year later, these may or may not be accurate phone numbers. We find that of the surveys that can't be completed, the majority of them are a phone number that's no longer working. If you find that to be the case, when you click on just to the left of the name, you see this link that says edit. When you click that, you're going to see a form. It's got the student's name and the phone number that was provided by the district a year prior. If you have a new phone number, what you can do in here is put in a new phone number, and today, the date you put it in, today's date is 5/19, and then go ahead and put in the correct number. Okay. We don't use addresses, so don't worry about the addresses, and go down here and click save. So this lets anyone know, either yourself or St. Norbert, especially if St. Norbert is calling first, that this is the date that you entered a new phone number. St. Norbert will try all of the phone numbers that are provided. So there may be more than 1 phone number. You can see here there's another phone number for a parent or guardian. in addition to the student phone number, go ahead and make sure you try all of those phone numbers that are provided. If you know that Christopher needs the survey in Spanish, you can go in here and go ahead and put needs survey in Spanish. Okay, St. Norbert, even if you're doing all your surveys yourself, or St. Norbert is doing them first, if you can flag which surveys need to be done in Spanish, we're going to do those surveys, I think in mid-July and about the 3rd week in August. St. Norbert will conduct the surveys that need to be conducted in Spanish. So make sure you go ahead and put that notation in here. If you know they need a special operator, this is where you can go ahead and edit and add that calling information. This form follows the student survey all the way through the process. So you'll see this form pop up in different places. So this is your contact information. Okay, now if you click on the enter surveys, you're going to see the same type of sorting at the top, where you can also look at your buildings and your district. And here, this is especially helpful if you're in a large district. Show open surveys only. If you've got 3 surveys left to do, you can click on this and it'll sort just those 3 that are not finished to the top for you. So you can see the 2 notes that I put in here. A new phone number was added and needs a survey in Spanish are now added as part of this calling information. When you log in and you go to enter surveys, this is really kind of your command center where you know what's going on, because here you will also see any notes that you take, the number of attempts that you've made, the interviewer initials, and the date it was completed. So this could be completed as incomplete or unsuccessful, as successful or as ineligible. And I'll show you how you get those. So the first thing that you're going to do is enter the survey. And I'm going to scroll you right down. We already talked about the different types of exiters. Okay, so on page 3, this goes into more depth about explaining about these 3 radio button choices. You will always, once you click that enter survey, you will always be at this page. This is just a little bigger. The interview has already been successfully completed and I only need to enter the data. So if you did a paper and pencil, you would come here, click on who gave you this information, and then you're right into the survey. Question 2, okay? If there is no survey to be conducted due to LEA comments. So here on page 4. Sometimes you're going to look at your list and you will know that you are not able to successfully complete a survey. And this is why. You've contacted and tried to use all the phone numbers that are available and they declined to answer the survey questions, which is fine. You would click here and terminate the survey and label as unsuccessful for any one of these reasons. They were contacted, but there was an unresolved language barrier, comprehension barrier. You can record that and then terminate it and label it as unsuccessful. You contacted someone, you got a hold of a parent or a sister or brother, and they said, you know, he's not here and I really can't answer the questions for you. Go ahead and click that one. So these 3, they were actually contacted, but declined or could not participate. Or 2 different types of no contact. So unable to find the phone number, no phone, they move, no forwarding number, same thing. Or you've tried, you've left messages and you've never been able to successfully contact with anyone other, and you can take a note and save those. So let's click this and terminate the survey. Oops. You know what, it's going to want to not, because I already had question 2 open, so it wants me to keep going. So this no survey also can be you get a hold of them on the phone, and you want to make sure that you have the right student. So if they tell you that they were exited from special education, or you know that they were before they left, go ahead and click this, and they're labeled ineligible. Every once in a while, we get a former student who did not yet graduate, they're still in high school, or they returned to high school. So a year ago, they were a dropout, but now they're back in school. They're not eligible to participate. Or they exited more than 2 years ago, or they are deceased. So click one of these, and the survey will be marked ineligible. I'm not sure why it's not marking ineligible, but it should be marking ineligible. It'll come up as ineligible. Okay, this is the one that you're going to use most often. This is, you'll be filling out the form while conducting the interview. Okay, so this, you're just going to follow through the surveys that the phone is answered. It is after all the phone numbers have been tried. It's, you haven't been able to get a hold of anyone, you can mark it unsuccessful, there's no answer, or you left a voicemail. And the two things that you want to prepare for is, yes, someone's answering the phone, or a voicemail. The voicemail is really important. You have to think about what message you're going to leave. Are you going to leave a phone number for them to call you back? Will you just say, I will try you again tomorrow at a different time? So maybe you call it 2 in the afternoon, and your message says, I'll try you again tomorrow after 4:30 p.m. Thank you. So prepare for what you're going to leave for a voice message. And then you can put any calling information in here, any notes about your attempt, and record, attempt, and save. Okay? And anytime you do that, you're going to go back to your home page, and you can see I left a voicemail, and it records 1 attempt. So now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to try again. So this time the phone is answered, and let's say it's answered by a parent or guardian or anyone else. Read through what this all has to tell you. You're trying to get a hold of Curtis. So I'd like to ask Curtis some questions about his experiences since leaving high school. Also, I want to point this out. This is the demographic information that pops up. So this is Curtis. We put the gender of the student. Sometimes you'll have a name and you won't know, and you'll want to say his or her or theirs, gender neutral. It's got the phone number and a parent name. So if you prefer to use his or her, or you can say, we'd like to ask Curtis some questions about experiences since leaving high school. Their answers will help plan classes and transition activities for current and future students, and the answers will not be shared with anyone. What is the best way to contact Curtis? Because we always want to get a hold of the former student first, if we can. So if they give you contact information, you can go ahead and call him at, 667-390. You can put that in here and record your attempt. But if they say, well, Curtis isn't available right now, do you feel you know enough about Curtis's experiences with continuing education and employment since leaving high school to answer some questions? They'll either say yes or no. If they say yes, you want to make sure that they're eligible for the survey. Did they attend high school during the 2019 or 20 school year? If they say yes, that was the year that we're in right now, then did he leave and return? Yes. You're going to end the call, and it's ineligible. Okay. So this student is marked. It's not marking them ineligible. I'm not sure. I know why, because I have all of the successful surveys marked. See, here's all my notes. Okay, so you can see Curtis is now marked ineligible. So I'm just going to keep going down my list. Second one, I'll be filling it out. The phone is answered. It's the former student. Again, you read everything in gray is your script. So this is what you're going to read and practice. These questions and the introductions are written pretty formal. So what you want to do is read through this, get the gist of what we're saying or we're trying to convey, because this 10 seconds will be very pivotal to if they want to participate in the survey. So you can say, hi, Zachary, this is Johnson. And I just wanted to ask you about what you've been doing since you left high school. I'm not going to share your answers with anybody. Can I ask you these questions now? No. Here's some ideas of what you can say. Can I call you back? If they say yes, enter your comments, and that will show up on your form so you can remember down the line. And then again, did you attend school? No. And you may know they didn't attend school. You can go ahead and click it for them, and then you're right into the questions. The most important thing here I need you to do is to read through the question and each of the response choices, because it is perfectly okay and you are encouraged to understand the question, make it conversational, and make sure that the person who's answering the call understands the intent of the question. You can rephrase the question any way that you need to that preserves the meaning of the question. So for instance, question 2, since leaving high school, have you participated in any type of college, courses, or job training? This can be things like college, adult or community education, a mission, vocational school, job training, or an online course. Keeping in mind, military is considered employment. So you may or may not need to say military is considered employment. If you know they haven't gone on to the military, yes, I've participated in some type of continuing education. You can see when I click yes, 3 grayed out, and you go right to question 4. Okay, so if you've gone on to any type, have you completed at least 1 term? And 1 term is defined by anything that who's ever offering the course defines. It can be a single course, a semester, a trimester, anything that they determine is a term. Substitute something close to you that they might recognize. I put in Salt Lake City Community College or Utah Career Technical College or Career College. Put something local in each of these examples, a 4-year college or a 2-year degree. You're going to ask each one of these because although OSEP only wants to know about the highest, you want to know about all the things the kids participated in. So you're going to ask each one of these response choices in 4 through 11. The reason I want you to read the question is you want to ask all of these, but let's say they went to something that you're not sure of what it is. This is other type. Make sure whenever other is available and you're unsure where to code something, code it here, because when you click yes, you'll get a drop-down text box and you may say pilot school. I don't know where to put that, so go ahead and put it right there. I read through every single one of the surveys for these open-ended comments, and I can go ahead and click this back up here. It's good if you say pilot. If they say pilot school, was that a 4-year college or a 2-year college or a tech school? If they tell you, go ahead and code it, and if not, leave it here, and it might just stay as other. Other counts, but only as other post-secondary ed, not as higher education. Okay, so they might have done pilot school at University of Utah somewhere. Make sure you're capturing those. If they have not participated, you're going to click here and you see it goes to question 3. You're going to follow these questions. If you're doing it paper and pencil, you'll go to question 3. It's the main reason you discontinued before you completed and come up with a response. You will see after question 3, question 12, 14, and 19, this is where the coronavirus stay-at-home impact is listed. If their program was interrupted or stopped due to coronavirus or stay-at-home, you're going to click this. As with any question, it's voluntary, but you can say, I'm sorry to hear that, and no, it may be difficult for you to know your future plans at this time, But once the stay-at-home is lifted, do you think you will continue your program or start another one, discontinue, or you're just not sure at this time? And again, this is just to give the school and the state a better picture of why something might have been interrupted. All these other choices have been here for a long time. They're on a mission. A lot of kids do go on to a mission, or they work before they go on to a mission. And here's that other. If you don't find one of these, click here and you can put the response here. I'm going to quick do the employment and then we'll be done for today. I'll answer a few questions. But let me just hit a couple of these competitive employment. I'm sorry, I'm running just a couple of minutes behind. Again, for employment, have you been employed at any time since leaving high school? And again, the days can either be in a row or can include things like paid sick leave, leave, vacation, and if they have been unemployed, if they're still on their employer's payroll, that would count. So maybe they're not working right now, but they're receiving some compensation to keep them on their payroll. That counts as being employed for those 30 days. So again, this one will tell you where to go. If they've been employed, it goes on to question 15 for where. So the community is really anywhere in the community, any type of a business, Walmart, a garage, mechanic garage, anything in the community, military, supported employment, because supported employment, even if someone goes with you for assistance, is considered community employment, and a self-employment or family business. Those count for community towards that competitive employment. Institutional, sheltered, or anything else, again, if you don't know, put it in here and I will recode it if it makes sense. That adds to that competitive, that category B. How many hours do you work? It needs to be 20 or more, so one of these two. If they say, I don't know, I'm not sure, would you say it's 20 or more? If they say yes, click 20 or more. Don't worry about the 35 or more. 20 or more meets the indicator 14 criteria. Which of these best describes your usual or hourly wage? If it's less than minimum wage, tell me why. If you say that their wait staff, or they say wait staff, it's $2.13. I've got it right here for you. Are you making at least $2.13 an hour? If they say yes, that's minimum wage. Go ahead and click minimum wage, because by law, they have to either, with their tips plus $2.13, it has to equal $7.25 an hour, or the employer has to make up the difference. So it's really minimum wage or greater. That's what you try to want. If they're reluctant to give you a range between 10 and 15 or above 15, if you can at least get them to say, yes, it's minimum wage or greater without pressuring them, that will count towards that competitive employment. And there again, if they're not working, ever, it goes to question 19. If they're working less than 90 days, it goes to 14. And I was laid off because of the coronavirus. And then there are just a couple questions about adult living. And the last two questions, what difficulties have you had being employed as you would like to be? And we like to end the survey on a positive note. So thinking about the things you are doing now, what's something positive that happened when you were in high school to help reach your goals? And it's so important to get those positive messages back to the school, back to the teachers, so they know what works for students. Really uplifting. And there again, if they want to contact somebody to verify the survey is legitimate, we can go ahead and give Lavinia's contact information. If they need services, try to connect them with local services. I know Lavinia had a lot of phone calls last year from people about how do I get a job, how do I enroll in school, and Lavinia can't really answer those questions. So maybe directing them back to their former school district, a special education teacher, or an adult service agency in the community will be the best way to get them immediate assistance. So I'll look and see if there are any questions right now from anyone on the call. And I think the most important thing I tell you is just to read the survey question and response choices and get familiar with how the survey unfolds at the very beginning on who you're talking to. When you close the survey and you hit Save Survey, there are some fail safes. If you forgot something, it will tell you, so you can go back and enter that, or you can go back to it later. So I just clicked on Come Back Later, but you can actually, it'll bounce you right back to the item that you missed. So like I said, you're always going to be right here. If you come back in 2 days, you'll see your notes, and everything is right on this page. Okay, so anything from the group chat that we need to touch bases on now?
Lavinia's been answering the questions in the chat as they've been coming in. So I think the majority have been answered.
Right, they have. I was just going to answer one more. If folks are still wondering where to go onto the website to indicate where your what your LEA's preference is as to how to approach the survey. So in other words, are you doing all of the surveys? Do you want SRI to do some or all? So yeah, Mary is hovering over that right now. So once you're logged in, you go to the very bottom and you'll see 2020 LEA post-school outcome survey participation. When you click that, then 3 boxes will pop up, and well, when you're logged in, 3 boxes will pop up, and it'll be really clear as to what your LEA is choosing. And that has to be done by May 30th, because that lets us know, you know, how we approach the survey. So in other words, if you want to do follow-ups, then we will prioritize your LEA and make sure that SRI starts off with attempts first, and then it gives you plenty of time throughout the summer to do follow-ups. And if you decide to do all of your surveys, then we don't need to involve SRI. So that's our way of tracking all of this activity. So if you could please indicate that by May 30th. If an LEA does not go here and indicate, then it just defaults to SRI doing it, because we're responsible, of course, for reaching all students in the state. So we as USBE have to gather that data.
Great.
Makes sense?
I think only 4 or 5 districts have indicated they want St. Norbert to do it. The rest of them will be defaulted. Right now, we have about 16 districts that are looking at interviewing after St. Norbert, and about 20 who are doing total interviewing themselves. So 36 out of 86 will have some involvement, and about 50 will have St. Norbert doing that. If your director has made a choice, you may not see, if you don't see this survey link right here, that means you may not have the authority to make the decision. Your director might only be able to see this page here. But if you want to change your mind, we'll have till the end of the month for you to decide how you would like to do the survey. The one thing I want to also mention really quickly is your district has to sign, the director of special ed has to sign an assurance. So as a teacher, you couldn't just decide on your own that you wanted to do this. Your director has to give permission, this assurance to Lavinia, and then you as an interviewer need to complete the assurances. So Lavinia, are you sending these out, or do you want these on the website?
I have sent them out only kind of upon request. So okay. I haven't put them out widely. We could put them on the website. That might be best. It might be hit or miss, you know, for me to try to get them out individually. But here's another question that I think is important that we need to answer. So if St. Norbert is doing the interviews first and the LEA wants to follow up, how will they be indicated? There was a little bit of hit or miss, I think, around that last year. How are they be contacted that State Norbert is finished, that they can go ahead? Is there a way that that happens automatically? Or sometimes I've been sort of, you know, the messenger in between, but how are we going to do that?
Okay. St. Norbert, if you're in that St. Norbert is interviewing first, St. Norbert will try your surveys first in June. And they usually give me an update every week, and I send that to Lavinia that St. Norbert is completed with these LEAs. So I can ask St. Norbert to, I mean, even on a daily basis, to let me know which districts are completed.
Okay, and then what
Once it goes out.
and I'm glad this came up too, is so some LEAs want to do their own surveys, but they do need SRI to do the Spanish surveys.
Yep.
So what's the best way to communicate that?
As long as it's in this edit contact information, and well, we review each of these. St. Norbert is always looking for the Spanish interviews, and they are flagging them. But the only way they know if it's going to be a Spanish interview is if you put that in the calling information.
Mm.
So that's the edit the contact information, edit. Let's see.
And where would
And
they?
you put that in the calling information to do it in Spanish.
Okay, does that answer your question, Julie?
So I'm going to put Spanish interview, and I'm going to save. Oops. You know,
Yeah, so as long as we indicate on our list, if they need a Spanish interviewer, the St. Norbert's is always going to check there and just know I don't need to do anything else other than indicate that in my call list.
Correct.
Okay. That answers it. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So I think we answered the question, will you be contacted by St. Norbert after they have finished trying? And the answer is yes, and they'll go off of who is listed as the contact person, right, in the database and the website.
Right. So of those 16 right now that said they're going to interview after St. Norbert, we'll get a daily update on St. Norbert closing out the surveys. I'll pass those to Lavinia. Lavinia can double check that you've submitted your interviewer assurance and that you're all set to go, and then you can take it over for there. The biggest thing is if you do say that you want to do the surveys after St. Norbert, somebody from your district has to go through and actually make sure you do those or close out the surveys. Because if you don't, then I have to. And it's just not, I mean, you need to have the option to actually do that.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, LEAs have until September 30th, but we certainly try to encourage LEAs not to leave it to the last minute, because you're so busy, you're coming back in your buildings, and it's difficult to get a hold of, potentially your former students at that time of the year. So if you can finish them up, July, early August, that's better.
Yep, that'd be perfect. And even if you're doing your surveys on your own or after St. Norbert, every once in a while you have a family or a student who left school and it was not a good situation, you prefer not to talk with them. St. Norbert can do individual surveys if you let me know. If the student is in jail or they're in the military service, St. Norbert can actually still try to get a hold of them and make an appointment with the jailer to do that survey. So don't let having them be in jail be a barrier to trying to do a survey. If you need any of those surveys conducted by St. Norbert, let me know, and I'll pass on the contact information in your district to St. Norbert, and they can do individual surveys as needed. Okay, anything else?
I'm not seeing anything else in the chat, and I know we went over a little bit.
Sorry.
If anyone has any last minute questions, otherwise you know how to get a hold of myself, Deanna, Mary's information's there as well, and Jenny's. So
Lavinia, here's
no
kind
dumb
of
questions, so you can certainly reach out anytime. What's that?
I was going to say, here's probably a simple question, but once I get my login and I'm able to log into the site, then I will find my list. I've kind of pulled together a list, but I'll know the
Yeah,
list.
so that'll all be entered. So yeah, so your list, initially in March, we had that in a spreadsheet, which we then uploaded into UPIPs for
Okay.
LEAs to look at and add contact information. But if you guys are doing your own surveys, that'll just automatically be uploaded. It'll be in there once you get your account and you go into that edit contact information and enter surveys, see your list there.
Okay.
Yeah, and if there's any issues with it, I mean, if you find that a student is ineligible or something is incorrect, you can reach out to me and let me know.
Okay.
But,
All right.
These
Thank
were
you.
the practice ones. So if you ever come to one of these Zeta tests and it looks full, just send me a quick note and I can just as very easily clear the the test ones so that they're blank and ready for you to go again.
Okay.
So you can see just clear. So if they're full, just let me know and we'll clear them right out.
So the recording for today, how will that be disseminated? So you can send me the link maybe, Jenny, and I can get it out? Okay.
Yep, I'll have it ready for tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll record tomorrow and try and make it a little shorter.
Yeah, we have another one of these trainings tomorrow, but we will definitely get you guys the link out so you can watch it again.
Okay, well, hopefully you find the website easy enough to maneuver. Once you get used to it, it's fairly easy. All right, thank you all very much for your time and for offering to do this for your districts. I hope that you get good information.
Yeah, we had a great turnout. Thanks everyone for your time. We know you have a lot on your plate. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.